Now, you mentioned that Trump is getting advice from all quarters, and there's the two philosophies. The one, traditional conservative Republicans who, of course, think the United States should assist Israel in defence of Western civilization. But then there's this new school of thought, the isolationist arm of the MAGA wing, who don't want to get involved. This is really the first time we're properly seeing it play out, and it does seem like the president's torn. Is that right?
I think he's pretty resolute. He makes the point that peace through strength does not mean that Iran gets a nuclear weapon. And you mentioned J.D. Vance and Mike Huckabee, who's the ambassador to Israel. And both of them have made statements. One, Huckabee sent a long private text message to the president, which the president then truthed out. And J.D. Vance wrote his own quite long message on X. And both really were saying the same thing, which is that Donald Trump has earned the right to be trusted. Mike Huckabee says, you're getting advice from all quarters. I believe that you are the man, he's a very religious Christian man. I believe that you are the man that God has put here in this place and blah, blah, along those lines. But he's not telling him one way or the other, and neither is J.D. Vance, at least publicly. And I don't think really, Donald Trump is neither one nor the other. And he said that in his last term, in his first term. He said, I'm not a hawk and I'm not a dove. I'm a common sense person, and I just treat everything on first principles. And that served him very well in his first term. He was tough. He got rid of Soleimani. But on the other hand, he refused to do a strike that John Bolton desperately wanted. John Bolton talks about being so bitterly disappointed in his book that he went home to get changed so that he would have the evening in the Situation Room having fun watching people die. And Donald Trump, while he was off getting changed, just changed his mind. He didn't want 150 Iranians to be killed in retaliation for a drone that wasn't manned, an unmanned drone of America being shot down. So he just is very infuriating to the neocons, to the hawks, but nobody controls him. Tucker Carlson doesn't, J.D. Vance doesn't, Lindsey Graham certainly doesn't. He has to make this decision on his own. It's a very lonely decision, and it's incredibly momentous. And I, for one, am very glad that it's Donald Trump who's in this position now, who's making that decision, because he's shown to be very wise in the past. When he left office after his first term, Iran was on its knees. It was broke. It didn't have the money to fund those proxies that attacked Israel on October 7. Israel has now completely degraded Hezbollah. Syria's gone. The Iranians are all alone, and they're at the weakest they could possibly be. So, if we want to get rid of those nuclear facilities, the time is ripe.
Yeah, exactly. I just want to ask you less about the Middle East, but where you think this emerging philosophical and ideological difference takes the Republican Party. Do you think this is going to be a deepening rift moving forward? I
think it just depends how things pan out. Again, this is about trusting Donald Trump. This is what J.D. Vance has said that everybody needs to do, trust his instincts. Same with Mike Huckabee, the ambassador. Trust his instincts, and they haven't set him wrong yet. And so, if Iran turns into World War III and is a disaster, of course, that's, his presidency, his place in history, but who cares? That's small beer compared to the catastrophe. But if he handles this, like I think a few presidents could, and actually just limits it and manages to help Israel get rid of this nuclear threat to the world, that there is not too much bloodshed, and that, the Iranian people figure out their own future, but at least it's not a nuclear future. They can do whatever they like. But they can't have a nuclear weapon that threatens everybody in the region and ultimately all of us. Exactly. So if he manages to do that, and I think the chances are good, then I think that he is he's already very powerful among the MAGA group and in the Republican Party. I think he will just, no one will doubt him in the future. But it's very difficult. Next few days, I wouldn't want to be him. And he does look, uncharacteristically somber and burdened by these concerns. He takes it very seriously.
I just finally want to ask you about President Trump missing the meeting with Anthony Albanese. He obviously had to rush back to the Situation Room, but clearly it was a snub as well. And he must have very little regard for Albanese, and who would blame him? I mean, the Australian Prime Minister speaks with more disdain and hostility about the Trump administration than he does about China. What's your view on this?
Look, I honestly don't think that he gives Anthony Albanese a second thought. The reason he came back was because of Iran. It certainly wasn't to snub Anthony Albanese. I don't think he cares less about him. I do think it's a pity that Australia doesn't have a better relationship with the Trump administration. I think it's very unfortunate that Anthony Albanese made those comments previously, but I would think that for Australia's sake, that he and Kevin Rudd and everybody else in the Albanese government would be pulling out all stops to make amends for any of their past statements. It honestly isn't something that's brought up. And I do think that Joe Hockey did a great job as ambassador. He really cultivated Donald Trump, played golf with him, played golf with his cabinet members, played golf with his chief of staff even. And there were a couple of really hairy moments for Australia that could have hurt Australia. And Joe Hockey papered them over, managed to iron them out.
Miranda, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.